Good evening, and welcome back to Candlelit Chronicles. Tonight, we travel to a chain of green islands rising from a quiet grey sea. A land the old storytellers said was stirred into being from the ocean itself, drop by careful drop, by two gods standing on a floating bridge in the sky. What did the earliest tellers of these islands believe waited in the mist between the mountains? And what small, watchful spirits did they imagine sharing every stream, every stone, and every old and quiet tree? Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It helps these quiet stories find the people who need them. And I would love to know where you are listening from tonight. Share your location and your local time in the comments below. There is something comforting in imagining this story unfolding softly across different corners of the world. All of us settling down together beneath the same slow-turning moon. Now, dim the lights, get comfortable. Let the day you have just finished drift gently away, like mist lifting off a quiet valley. Settle in. Let your eyes rest. Tonight, we drift back to the very beginning of the world, before Japan had islands, or names, or even a shore. To a time when the whole of creation was still soft and unformed, floating quietly, like oil on the surface of still water. The old land itself is long and narrow, strung like a bead necklace along the edge of the sea, mountains rising steeply almost everywhere you look, so that even today, most of its people live pressed close along a thin green coastline, with the misty, forested high country left largely to itself. It is easy to understand, looking at a land shaped like that, why its oldest stories are so full of mountain spirits and mist and the sound of unseen water. The wild, high places were always close by, visible from nearly every village, never quite tamed, and never, in these old tellings, entirely without someone watching over them. In the oldest tellings, before there was land at all, there was only a formless, drifting nothing. And then, gently, the first gods came into being, one after another, appearing and settling into the world the way stars quietly appear in a darkening sky. They asked for nothing and did very little, these earliest gods. They simply were, marking the first slow heartbeat of the universe before hiding themselves away, leaving the real work of creation to those who came after. That work fell, at last, to two young gods named Izanagi and Izanami, he of the male way, she of the female way, brother and sister, and in time, husband and wife. The elder gods handed them a jeweled spear and told them, simply and warmly, to make solid ground of the drifting world below. So Izanagi and Izanami stood together on the floating bridge of heaven and lowered the spear into the misty brine beneath them and stirred it. Slowly, patiently, the way you might stir a pot of something precious, taking real care not to rush. When at last they lifted the spear back out, salty drops fell from its tip, and where they fell, they gathered and hardened into an island. Imagine that image for a moment as you drift toward sleep. An entire island formed from nothing more than a few careful drops falling gently back into the sea. Delighted, the two gods descended to their new island, raised a great pillar there, and built a home. And in the years that followed, walking around that pillar together in a kind of quiet, repeated ceremony, they brought forth island after island, the whole gentle archipelago of Japan, born one careful, patient act of creation at a time. Izanagi and Izanami went on to give life to many of the gods of nature: the wind, the mountains, the sea, the trees, until, in giving birth to the god of fire, Izanami was burned so badly that she passed from the world of the living into the quiet land of the dead. Izanagi, grieving deeply, could not bear to simply let her go. He followed her down into that shadowed land and found her at last in a great dark hall and begged her to come home with him, back into the light. Izanami told him gently that she had already eaten the food of that quiet realm and could not easily return, but that she would go and ask its keepers whether an exception might be made, if only he would wait patiently and not look upon her until she returned. Izanagi waited as long as he could bear to, but the waiting grew heavy, and at last worry got the better of him, and he lit a small flame to see by, and in that soft, trembling light he saw what time in the land of the dead had done to the wife he loved. Izanami, ashamed and sorrowful, called out that he had broken his promise, and Izanagi, frightened now himself, turned and fled back up toward the world of the living, sealing the passage between the two realms behind him with a great boulder. On either side of that stone, husband and wife spoke one final time, Izanami saying, with the particular sadness of that place, that from then on she would take 1,000 lives each day into her quiet realm, and Izanagi, gently, answered that he would then ensure 1,500 new lives were born each day in the world above, so that always, gently, life would outpace the dark. It is one of the tenderest exchanges in the whole of Japanese myth, not a story about fear in the end, but about the quiet, determined insistence that light and life will always, patiently, keep the advantage. Izanagi, returning at last to the world above, went to a river to wash away the sorrow and shadow of that underground journey, and as he cleansed himself gently in the clear water, 3 of the most important gods in the whole of Japanese myth came into being from that very washing. From the washing of his left eye came Amaterasu, the great goddess of the sun, radiant, warm and gentle, the light that would come to be honored above almost all others. From the washing of his right eye came Tsukuyomi, god of the moon, quiet and pale and dignified. And from the washing of his nose came Susanoo, god of storms and the sea, impulsive, powerful, and often, in these old tales, a bit of a handful. Izanagi, delighted with these 3 radiant children, divided the world gently between them, the sky and the heavens to Amaterasu, the night to Tsukuyomi, and the seas to Susanoo. Susanoo, though, was never quite content simply to keep to the sea. He wept loudly and for a very long time, missing his mother Izanami in the land of the dead, until his weeping dried up rivers and withered whole forests. And when at last he went to visit his sister Amaterasu in the high plain of heaven before setting off at last to find his mother, his boisterous, careless manner frightened her so deeply that she withdrew entirely into a cave and pulled a great stone across the entrance behind her. The sun goddess, gone from the sky. Darkness fell over heaven and earth alike, and stayed. Crops failed. Every kind of trouble, the old tellers say, began creeping out of every shadowed corner, now that the light that usually kept them gently in check had vanished entirely. The other gods gathered, worried and searching for some way to coax Amaterasu back out. What they settled on, in the end, is one of the gentlest and cleverest solutions in any mythology anywhere. They hung a great bronze mirror on a tree just outside the cave and gathered together and held a wonderful, joyful, deliberately noisy celebration right there at her doorstep. Music, dancing, laughter, the goddess Ame no Uzume dancing so merrily upon an overturned tub that the watching gods roared with delighted laughter of their own. Amaterasu, inside her cave, heard all that joy and grew curious despite herself. She eased the boulder aside, just a little, to ask what could possibly be so entertaining while she was away, and one of the waiting gods gently told her that they had found a goddess even more radiant than she was, gesturing to the mirror. Amaterasu leaned further out to see this rival for herself, and saw, of course, only her own bright reflection looking back. In that moment of surprise, the gods gently pulled the boulder fully aside, and light returned to the world. It is worth sitting with that story a moment longer than most, because of what it quietly teaches, that even the sun herself, in her lowest hour, was not commanded back into the sky, or fought for, or forced. She was coaxed back by warmth and laughter and the simple, patient joy of people who wanted her home. Susanoo, meanwhile, was cast down from heaven for the trouble he had caused, and descended to the land of Izumo, on the main island below. And there, his story softens considerably, and becomes something closer to a hero's tale. Walking beside a river, he came upon an old couple weeping bitterly, and learned that a monstrous, 8-headed, 8-tailed serpent, Yamata no Orochi, vast enough to stretch across 8 valleys and 8 hills at once, had already devoured 7 of their 8 daughters, and had come now for the last. Susanoo, the storm god who had once caused so much trouble simply by being himself, turned that same restless, powerful nature towards something worth protecting. He had the family brew 8 great vats of strong rice wine and set them out in a row. And when the enormous serpent arrived, each of its 8 heads found a vat waiting, and drank deeply, and grew heavy and slow with drink. In that moment, Susanoo struck and slew the great serpent at last, saving the final daughter, whom he then married. Among the serpent's remains, Susanoo discovered a magnificent sword, which he sent up to his sister Amaterasu as a gift of reconciliation. And that sword became one of the 3 sacred treasures of Japan, alongside Amaterasu's mirror and a curved jewel, treasures said to be passed down generation after generation among the rulers of the land. Susanoo's own descendants in time included a rather more famous figure still, Okuninushi, a kind-hearted god who once stopped along a mountain road to gently help a rabbit that had been cruelly tricked and hurt, when his own brothers had simply mocked the poor creature and walked on. That single small act of kindness, the old story insists, was noticed and rewarded, and Okuninushi went on to build and shape the land of Izumo itself, ruling it wisely, before agreeing, in a final act of grace, to hand his earthly kingdom peacefully over to Amaterasu's own descendants, retiring instead to a great shrine built specially in his honor, where he was given, as quiet compensation, dominion over matters of the heart. Which is why, even now, Izumo's shrine is the one most young couples visit, hoping for his blessing on a good marriage. And Okunyanushi did not shape that land entirely alone. A tiny god no bigger than a fingertip, Sukuna Bikona, arrived floating across the water in a boat made from the husk of a bean pod, wearing a coat of moth feathers. And though the smallest of all the gods by far, he proved endlessly clever and capable, teaching farming and medicine and the brewing of good sake, before at last climbing a single stalk of millet, bending it low with his tiny weight and springing off into the unknown, never to be seen again. Even among gods who could reshape whole coastlines with a spear, the old storytellers made careful room for one no larger than a fingertip, and loved him every bit as much. From Amaterasu's own line came, in time, the grandson she sent down to govern the earthly land below, and from him, the old chronicles say, descended the whole long line of Japan's emperors, a golden thread of descent running, in legend, directly back to the sun herself. That grandson's name was Ninigi, and his descent to earth is told with a particular gentleness in the old chronicles. Amaterasu sent him down through the parting clouds, carrying the 3 sacred treasures with him: the mirror that had once coaxed her from her cave, the sword her brother had pulled from the great serpent, and a curved jewel of soft green stone, and told him to rule the new land below with the same warmth she herself brought to the sky. He descended onto a mountain peak wreathed in cloud, and from that quiet, misty summit, the story says, the settling of Japan's own royal house began. These stories themselves come down to us through 2 old chronicles written in the early 8th century, the Kojiki, the record of ancient matters, and the Nihon Shoki, the chronicles of Japan. Court scholars gathered up generations of spoken story, passed mouth to mouth around countless hearths long before either book was written, and set them carefully into their final written shape. It is a lovely thing to consider on a quiet evening, that the very story you are hearing tonight survived first as something spoken softly, long before anyone thought to write it down at all. But high myth was never the whole of it. Beside the great gods of sun and storm and sea, the old villages of Japan held a whole other, gentler layer of belief, the conviction that spirit, some warm and watchful presence, rested quietly inside nearly everything. A very old, very tall tree might hold one, a particular bend in a mountain river, an especially large moss-covered stone. These spirits were called kami, and there were said to be as many of them as there are grains of rice in a full field. 8 million, the old phrase goes, though the true number was never really the point. The point was simply this, that the world itself was alive and worth treating gently. To honor them, villages raised shrines, small wooden gateways called torii, marking the threshold between the ordinary world and the sacred one. and a quiet shrine building beyond it, tended with fresh water and rice and a rope of twisted straw hung with folded paper, marking the boundary of something worth protecting. Even today, a torii gate standing alone in a misty forest, or half in the sea at the edge of a quiet island, tells you, without a single word, that you have stepped somewhere the old stories still consider sacred. Among the kami, one in particular grew to be especially beloved across the whole countryside. Inari, the gentle spirit of rice and harvest, and, by gradual and warm extension, of prosperity and good fortune in general. Inari's shrines are marked, unmistakably, by long rows of vivid vermilion torii gates set one after another up a hillside, sometimes hundreds deep, each one a small private thanks from a family or a merchant whose fortunes had, in some quiet way, improved. And watching over every Inari shrine sit carved stone foxes, kitsune, considered the spirit's own messengers, often shown holding a key or a jewel or a sheaf of ripened rice, gazing calmly out over the very same fields their shrine was built to bless. Farmers left their first cup of the morning's rice wine at these small roadside shrines before ever tasting it themselves. And fishermen did much the same with the first catch of a good day. Small, unhurried acts of gratitude, repeated so many mornings across so many centuries that they became themselves a kind of quiet prayer requiring no words at all. And alongside the kami lived their more mischievous, more unpredictable cousins, the yokai. The word covers an enormous and wonderfully varied family of spirits, and the old tellers were never in any hurry to make them simply frightening. Many yokai were playful more than dangerous. The kitsune, a fox spirit capable of taking a lovely human shape, clever and occasionally a little vain, but just as often shown helping a kind traveller as tricking a rude one. The old stories say a fox grows wiser and gains an additional tail with every century it lives, until, after 9 long centuries of patient learning, it becomes a 9-tailed fox of enormous wisdom and power, silver-furred and glowing faintly in moonlight, said to understand the hearts of humans better than humans understood themselves. Most kitsune tales, though, are gentler and smaller than that. A fox spirit disguised as a beautiful traveller, testing a poor woodcutter's kindness before revealing herself and leaving behind a blessing of good fortune. Or a fox quietly guarding a lonely mountain shrine through 100 winters, asking nothing in return but a little rice left respectfully at the gate. The tanuki, a raccoon dog with a fondness for mischief and transformation, said to enjoy nothing more than a good-natured prank followed by a very large drum made from his own comically stretched belly. Carved tanuki statues still sit outside shops and restaurants across Japan today, round-bellied and cheerfully grinning, a wide straw hat tipped back on their heads, less a warning to travellers than a standing invitation to good luck and good company, the old mischief softened over centuries into simple welcome. There were the kappa, small river spirits with a dish of water balanced on the top of their heads, said to be dangerous if provoked, but also, charmingly, bound by an almost obsessive politeness. If you bowed to a kappa, the old stories insisted, it was honour-bound to bow deeply back, spilling the water from its head in the process, and losing, for a while, all of its considerable strength. Even a river spirit in these tales could be gently undone by simple good manners. Village children were taught to be respectfully wary near deep river bends where a kappa might live, but the old stories are, just as often, quietly funny rather than frightening. A kappa challenged to a wrestling match and defeated not by strength, but by a clever bow. A kappa promising, in exchange for its freedom, to teach a family the secret of setting a broken bone and keeping that promise faithfully for generations after. Some villages even left a small offering of cucumber, said to be a kappa's particular favourite, quietly at the water's edge every summer. Not from fear exactly, but from the same instinct that leaves rice at a shrine gate. The simple old idea that a good neighbour, even an unusual one, deserves a small kindness now and then. Out beyond the rivers, in the deep water where the fishing boats disappeared over the horizon, the old stories placed Ryujin, the dragon god of the sea, ruling from a palace built entirely of red and white coral deep beneath the waves, where the passing of the seasons themselves could be commanded simply by turning over one of his 4 magical tide jewels. Sailors who showed the sea proper respect were said to return safely and heavy with fish, and every so often a fortunate fisherman was invited down to Ryujin's coral palace itself for a single golden afternoon among gently swaying anemone gardens, only to return to the surface and find, in the old story's gentlest and saddest turn, that many years had quietly passed above while he enjoyed that one afternoon below. Even the sea, in these tellings, moved to its own patient and different clock. Not every yokai was quite so gentle, of course, but the old storytelling tradition treated even its stranger, more unsettling spirits with a certain careful respect rather than pure dread. These were neighbours, in a sense, sharing the same misty hills and quiet forest paths. Beings you learned the customs of, the way you might learn the moods of a river or the temper of a particular hillside, rather than enemies to be simply destroyed. Much of this old belief, gentle and watchful, found its truest expression in the quiet rhythm of the Japanese year. In spring, the cherry blossoms opened all at once across the islands, a soft, brief flood of pale pink and white that the old poets treated almost as a visit from the spirit world itself, beautiful precisely because it lasted such a short and precious while. Families still gather beneath the blooming branches for hanami, flower viewing, laying out simple meals beneath the drifting petals, a festival less about celebration, really, than about paying quiet, grateful attention to something lovely that will not stay long. The old poets had a particular word for this feeling, mono no aware, the gentle, bittersweet awareness that beautiful things are beautiful partly because they pass. A falling petal caught for one instant in warm evening light before drifting down to the grass was never mourned in these old poems. It was simply quietly noticed and appreciated all the more for its brevity. That same soft attentiveness runs through nearly every old Japanese story about the natural world. The idea that a thing need not last forever to matter deeply, and that noticing it clearly just once while it is here is itself a kind of quiet devotion. In summer, paper lanterns were lit and floated down rivers during Obon, the season when ancestors were believed to return gently to visit their families for a few warm evenings, guided home by candlelight and welcomed with dance. And in autumn, the harvest moon rose full and golden over rice fields nearly ready for gathering, honoured with offerings of rice dumplings set out on a quiet windowsill, beneath a sky the old poets loved best of all the year. Even the smallest household customs carried this same soft attentiveness. A quiet word of thanks before a meal, a moment's pause at a roadside shrine, the old belief that a place, or an object, or a season deserved a little gratitude simply for existing as beautifully as it did. And so, the gods of the sun and storm and the small, watchful spirits of stone and stream and the mischievous, oddly mannered yokai all settled together into the same misty mountains and quiet rice valleys, each finding their particular corner of the world to watch over gently, the way a family settles into a house built room by careful room. The islands themselves, the old story insists, were never simply land. They were something stirred into being with real care by two gods who loved each other on a bridge that once connected heaven to the sea. And perhaps that is why, even now, so much of the old tradition asks you to notice and to thank and to tread gently. Because somewhere, the old tellers believed, in every mountain and every quiet stream, the memory of that first careful stirring is still, ever so slightly, present. And so we come to the end of tonight's journey, back down from the high plain of heaven, back past the Torii gate standing quiet in the mist, back to the soft, patient dark where the cherry blossoms are folding their petals closed for the night. Somewhere on a quiet mountain road tonight, a small paper lantern is still glowing, guiding someone gently home. And perhaps, if you let your own eyes close now, you might imagine following that same soft light all the way down into sleep. Thank you for wandering these misty islands with me tonight. If these quiet stories help you rest, consider subscribing, and perhaps tell me in the comments which mythology you would like me to explore next. But that is a thought for tomorrow. For now, the shrine is quiet, the lanterns are dim, and the mountains are settling softly into sleep all around you. Good night and sweet dreams.